Alright.
Am I ready for this?
I don't know, are you?
It's only been like, 6 months since the last time I filmed.
Yeah.
I don't really know how to do this anymore.
Has it been 6 months?
It feels like it's been a long time, and now I'm camera shy again. Just when I was starting to get used to things, and now I've reverted back. All right. Hi guys, and finally welcome back to episode 9. It feels like an eternity. It really does feel like an eternity. After doing it consecutively every week, coming back to it now just feels also unfamiliar. It's strange, once again. And then also doing it in a new space is even more strange. Yeah, there's something to it, right? When you start doing things in one space and then you move to another space and you have to get used to it again because the familiarity of your environments have changed. Did that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm glad I speak English still these days. All right. This episode is on Death Walker. I think I've watched this episode like 5 billion times. And I still don't know what to talk about.
Jenny, what is your, where are you going with this?
All right, so.
What are you saying?
I'm not really saying much.
Look, you need a plan here. This happened last time. What is it that you're just summing up the episode, and I told you.
Not to do that.
Right, this is media therapy, so we need to talk about what this meant for you, what this episode was for you.
So, with all that said.
Oh my god, I'm going to cut all of that out because none of it makes any sense. So just start from scratch. I remember from our conversation, and this was something I meant to say to you last time. I was not surprised. You were really, really irritated, both times that we discussed this, by the fact that you felt that people should have asked more questions, right? That was something that irritated you to no end. I would say that you almost got emotionally aggravated by the fact that you felt that these people were being naive and that they were being stupid and that they were just kind of everything went to the wind once they realized what it did. That was the biggest emotional factor for you. The thing that pissed you off the most was the naivete or just the assumptions that people made. And even in our discussion afterwards, we had a long discussion about this. You were really angry about that. And I'm like, in my head, I'm like, why does this bother her so much? Of all the things in that episode for you to be bothered by and irritated by, that was what really resonated with you. And I want to know why. What does that have to do with you? And why does that make you... That's the media therapy part. I don't care about the Death Walker. I don't care about the 𝘦𝘱𝘴𝘁. Those are just... We all know the moral
All right, let me see if I could start this a little bit differently.
I want to know why you were so bothered by that. Because that really amazed me. You went on about that. That pissed you off. Why? What is it about that hits you so hard?
So, in watching this episode, the thing that really initially bothered me was the fact that people didn't ask questions about what was in the 𝘦𝘱𝘴𝘁 and what consequences there would be with the 𝘦𝘱𝘴𝘁. What was the cost? Because there's no, in my mind, I'm very in some ways I'm very cynical, right? So then if you have something that seems to promise you this great thing that's supposed to give you immortality, anti-aging, healing properties, and all these other things. The question that I would have is, well, what's in it? And they never knew until the very end. As, they made arrangements, they bickered about who, whether or not they were going to try her and all that. And that was the thing that bothered me the most.
What was in it? Or
what was in it?
Cost?
The cost, it's twofold. It's one, no one asked what was in the 𝘦𝘱𝘴𝘁. that they had no idea that in order to create the anti-GAPic, it would take the life of another human person, a living being, in order to create the anti-GAPic. And then what that then means is, well, then who would benefit from that, right? Who would benefit from such a thing? So the thing that really, really irritated and bothered me about this episode was exactly that. That everyone, I think everyone was well-intentioned. They were trying to make a decision based on this place of what Kohlberg would say, post-conventional morality, which is basically looking at what is right and wrong based on one's personal beliefs. And, and only a couple of, no, not a couple, but only not all adults get to that place of being able to think at the post-conventional level of morality. And so I appreciated that part. Everyone's like, okay, well, it's for the better. It's for the greater good. It's for being able to help people. But they didn't really see the irony of that because they didn't ask the question, well, what's in the anti-GAPic? And if something was that good, wouldn't you want to question, like, how it's that good? Why is it that good? And that comes from, just sort of my understanding that, like, I think it really does come from a place of being cynical, and not believing that there are such things as things that are like 100% always something being beneficial, because there's always a downside to this. And I think that comes from my own struggle with my physical health, and even like my mental health. I've gone through bouts of depression, and nothing really quite worked for me, or the treatments that were suggested, or the things that were the interventions that were recommended for me, all had these side effects. Oh, it sounds great on paper. It sounds great what the medications would say that they would do, but... And then it lists a billion different side effects that you can suffer from, right? If you're unlucky. So why would the anti-GAPic be any different? And then on top of that, I think feeling as though in some ways, I don't know if entitlement is the word to describe like how everyone was really just scrambling about, thinking that it was something that they too could get a hold on, right? Like they too can benefit from the anti-GAPic, but who would benefit from this realistically? Realistically, who would benefit from this? I mean, who typically benefits from things that are great? I mean, the Earth Alliance, they have their hands on it already, meaning like they already made arrangements for 𝘸𝘀𝘀 to go to Earth, and 𝘸𝘀𝘀 had made arrangements to share the anti-GAPic with them. And I think to me, it just seems so naive that they would think that somehow, in some way, that they would see human life just as precious as everyone else did. And that also bothers me, because it was, it's this selective thinking that they had. It just didn't seem like it was well thought out or fully thought out what the consequences, the outcome, the possibilities were. And that bothered me. And just thinking about it, it really is a reflection of, like, I think a lot of things that I've gone through. As doctors make recommendations of, like, the interventions that they told me to, participate in or have. Like, I've been recommended to go on Humira or Entyvio, which are immunosuppressants. And if you look at the side effects of all of that, it's terrible. And on top of that, they even wrote in my medical notes that I'm actually resistant to therapy, which I am, but that I was resistant to therapy that was backed by science, and that the approach that I was taking, which was more naturopathic and functional medicine oriented, was not backed by science. And I found that so absolutely astounding that they would, judge me this way, even though there's a bunch of scientific literature about autoimmune disorders from the standpoint of functional medicine, from the standpoint of even just research of like the microbiome and how it affects the autoimmune system and all of that. But their only vision was that there was only one way of treating this. And if I didn't follow that treatment, then I was the one who was ill-informed. So I think I made that connection in that way, and it bothered me that they didn't see all the possibilities of what this could mean in the long run. I mean, in the short run and even in the long run. In the short run, who would it immediately benefit? And could they gain the benefit of any of the anti-agapic serum? Then if the agapic was in the hands of people who were more powerful, and only the powerful people had their hands on something that gave them immortality, then all the other races, would they be exterminated?
Sure.
Extinct is the word. Would they become extinct? And I see that as a very likely possibility, because, I mean, what's in the anti-agapic? Whose lives do you think they would take in order to create it? It would be those of with less power. And I think that's the ultimate irony. And that bothered me. One would think that the first reaction that I would have was, the atrocities that 𝘸𝘪𝘴 caused because, during the time of war and the number of people she killed and the experiments that she's done. I see that as something that, like, well, yes, and I certainly think that's important to address. And she needs to, pay for all the crimes that she's committed. But the thing about that was then we were blindly willing to perpetuate the exact same thing she was doing because they didn't ask questions. And I think maybe that's just, lack of forethought, or maybe not considering possibilities. I'm not sure. I think the idea of also people with power having more power is also something that bothers me quite a lot. People with power already have power. People with power are not always well-intentioned. I know Babylon 5 is really about trying to find peace and commonality among one another and learn from one another. But outside of that, they have to go a very long way. I mean, even within that B5, like, look at 𝘿𝑗𝑎𝑟. He's not really there for the same reasons as most other people seem to be, but I'm not really sure. I mean, I think everyone has their own objectives, right? The Minbari, the Centauri, they have their own reasons for being there. I don't really know what all those reasons are, but I certainly do know that 𝘿𝑗𝑎𝑟 is not there to find peace among other alien races. I think he's there to really just try to make sure that he can get the benefit of becoming more powerful. I don't know. I think he's there to collect intel.
Sure.
And be the first to gain a lot of the information that funnels through B5. I mean, what better place to do that than at a central location that has everyone collected there, you know, to be able to get all that intel. So yeah, I don't trust anyone in B5 at this point. Everyone has their own motivations, and I don't think I trust anyone. It's interesting because, and I don't know if this was Sinclair just sort of continuing to put on a show, but he really felt that Minbari was going to vote against 𝘸𝘢 for her to be tried, right? And he continued to say, because they're an honorable people. Is that him believing it still? Is that him being in denial? Or is that just him playing the game? But he's talking to 𝘸𝘢𝘵 when he says that line. Does he continue to not trust 𝘸𝘢𝘵 then? So I have those questions. That question is basically, does Sinclair still like think the Minbari are an honorable people? I don't know. I don't know.
Where does he even get that idea of honor? Like, where does that come from? Like, why does he think they're an honorable people? Where they were going to completely destroy the earth because they surrendered at the last minute and no one knows why, that makes them honorable? Like, where does he get this word honor from? What part of their behavior is honorable? I don't even know where he gets that from.
I don't either. I mean, considering he has much more information now than he ever did before. He knows that he has a hole in his mind. He knows that his memory's been tampered with while he was with the Minbari when he was captured. He knows that they would have obliterated Earth, and they could have. He doesn't know why, though. The only thing I could think of is, I think he's giving this sort of blind, holding on to this blind trust in the Minbari because they didn't completely destroy Earth. And then meeting 𝘸𝘢 and seeing how zen she is. Many of his experiences with 𝘸𝘢 have been like very zen, right? And I think it comes from that. And especially with the Soul Hunter episode, I think that level of sensitivity probably got boosted too. I'm wondering if it's from there because, I mean, 𝘸𝘢 had me fooled for a while. That woman. Wow. I feel taken advantage of here. I feel lied to. Yeah, 𝘸𝘢 had me fooled. And even in this episode, I could say that probably my favorite character is Lennier. Even though I shouldn't trust him in Bari at all. But he seemed very honest this episode. My favorite character was Lennier. And I think it was because he spoke so candidly.
Right.
And you could see that resonate. And then there's this peace to him too that he emanates when he speaks. It's very zen. It's very peaceful. It's the kind of personality I mesh well with.
I am sorry, Commander. I have caused this evil woman to escape her just fate.
The Windswords did shelter her, didn't they? And your government knew about it?
No, not at first. When we went to war with Earth, the Windswords came to the Council with weapons, terrible weapons, created by this monster. That's when the Council first learned she was with them. Of course, we could not reveal it then. And like all secrets long kept, we cannot bear the shame of admitting it now.
What a great line, by the way. And it's a great line because it really accurately sums up the idea of what shame is and how it affects oneself, like how it affects someone. The longer you keep something that you are ashamed of a secret, the harder it is for you to become upfront about it. Because then it becomes not something you feel guilty about, and not something that you feel like it's a wrongdoing, like a mistake. It ends up becoming embedded in you as part of your identity. And I think that makes it even harder to be forthcoming about something that, of some wrongdoing you've done. So I thought that that line was extremely poignant. It was really well said. And it speaks volumes to the things that a lot of people experience and they have a hard time talking about, and you wonder like, oh man, I just want, they just need to like talk about it, they just need to like be upfront about it. But like the psychology of that is so, it's very fascinating. It's not easy. It's not easy to be forthcoming about something that you felt so bad about this whole time, and the longer you keep it a secret, the longer it becomes, the harder it becomes to share it. Going back to the whole thing with the 𝘦𝘱𝘵𝘢𝘴, and like the fact that Sinclair is the sole survivor, there was a part of me that wondered as well, like, I know that Sinclair really wanted the 𝘦𝘱𝘵𝘴𝘴 to be beneficial to all these people, right? And how the many lives that it could help and save. And I thought about how much of his sense of survivor's guilt played a role in that too. Because he was so for it, despite what 𝘸𝘪𝘴 did. And I mean, what was his line when he was speaking to Garibaldi?
What the hell are you doing, Jeff?
Following orders.
Those orders stink. Whatever 𝘸𝘠𝑢𝑟's peddling doesn't change what she is.
I know, damn it. But if Dr. Franklin's right, her discovery will bring a future free of disease, aging, death, all across the galaxy. She can save more lives than she took. And she can make the deaths she caused have meaning. Isn't that worth considering?
And he speaks those words with such conviction that, maybe this can make up for all the atrocities that she's committed. And then I wonder about his survivor's guilt and all the people that were lost in the war. And then for the future, all the people that could be saved, and no more lives need to be lost anymore. So, and that's his, like, that's his post-conventional morality speaking, right? It's so easy to want to like find justice and try her. But then if she had this potential to save other people, then is that not worth considering as something that like you have to like run through your mind? And it's like this gray area. Well, do you save a criminal? Do you forgive her sins if she can save people from illness? It's a tough call. It's a tough call. Of course, the 𝘸𝘢𝘆𝘆𝑜ns didn't have to think twice about it, though.
It's not that tough.
No, it's not, because he considered the ultimate, like, the outcome of all this, right? What do you think would happen? And he considered it all. My God, when Kosh just sort of came into that room and saw the ship get destroyed, 𝘸𝘠𝑢𝑟's ship just like sliced and explode, and then he says, you're not ready for immortality, and just leaves the room.
The fact that he showed up at all to watch it on the screen with everybody else, like he could have been in his quarters when all of this happened. That tells me something about the 𝘸𝘠𝘆𝑜ns.
Well,
he made his presence, known
mm-hmm.
while everyone was watching what was happening on the screen. He made sure that he was there so that everyone knew he was there.
Okay, so I'm gonna say that his presence there, while everyone's gathered around to see like 𝘸𝘠𝑢𝑟 like take off and go to Earth, right? How do I explain this? So I think his presence even made what's the word? It even intensified and exaggerated the, I don't want to say ridiculousness, but it just almost seems like the ridiculousness of the whole situation. You had all these people bickering back and forth about, like, trying her as a criminal. Oh, but wait, she can save lives. Oh, but wait, we could benefit from this. Oh, but wait, this is going to give her, give us power. Oh, yeah, but she still needs to be tried as a war criminal. After all that bickering and discussion and trying to figure out what to do, the ultimate question is, well, can we handle immortality? And that's it, right? That was the only thing. And who's going to benefit from immortality? And he already had that in his mind. He already calculated that. So he's there in this room and he watches this spaceship blow up, and everyone else is just watching around, looking and standing around after all that bickering back and forth that they'd done, and it just seemed ridiculous in the end. All that wasted time, energy, and effort just was meaningless by that point. And it reminded me of, it seemed like the same scenario of that Twilight Zone episode that you showed me, which is titled The Shelter. It was very similar to what you showed me on the Twilight Zone, The Shelter episode. That after all that, in the end, after all this bickering and everything that went on, in the end, all that fighting was for nothing. And then you're left with this question about, you question yourself with everything that went on and whether or not it was all worth it. And if you had thought everything through, would you have wasted all that time, energy, and effort? That's a question for myself, for sure. There have been lots of situations where I've been through, or I've considered different scenarios in my life or different experiences in my life, and I've put a lot of time, energy, and effort into something without really thinking about the end outcome. Even if the end outcome was something I knew, I would just sort of brush it under the rug and not want to consider it, because I thought to myself, oh, well, the journey's fun. But in some scenarios, and actually in most cases, the journey is fun temporarily, but then when you get to the end, the inevitable end, I think to myself, was it worth it? Was it worth having spent the time, energy, and effort into something that was inevitably not going to be in my favor, or that was going to come to an end and nothing would be left of it? And I've had a few situations in my life, probably more than a few that I like to even admit, where I've seen moments in my life as these crutches to feel like it gave me meaning. But in the end, it left me with nothing. And I could talk about it in the sense of some relationships that didn't work out, or some decisions that I made regarding my life that hit a dead end. But they weren't for something that could mean more at the end either. Could I say it shaped me? Yeah, sure, in some ways. Could I have used my time better? When I reflect on that question, the answer is absolutely. I could have used my time in much more productive ways. I could have used my money and my efforts in much more productive ways that could have gone towards something that had a future and not a dead end. So I placed myself as one of those people who were standing around watching the 𝘸𝘢𝘴𝘯 get on the spaceship. And I actually in that moment felt, as 𝘸𝘢𝘴𝘯 spaceship exploded, it was very metaphorical. It seemed like, it felt like it was something that I felt as my own decisions that weren't so great come to an end. And then I imagined myself being 𝘠𝘷. And what that would look like from that angle. What it would look like looking at everyone in that room, having fought and bickered over something so insignificant in the grand scheme of things. And if I had the mindset like 𝘠𝘷, would I continue to still make the certain kinds of decisions I make that aren't productive to my life or meaningful to my life? Probably not. So essentially, I looked at that scene as me looking at myself and the kind of person I saw, like the sort of foolish me, being observed by the more wise me. And I think that's something that I want to take away from this episode. I think it is going to be something that I take away from this episode. That I learn to step back from my emotions a bit more, to see the situation more clearly. And as much as I can say that all these people didn't ask the questions, well, what's in the anti-agapic, and like, who do you think is going to benefit at the end? Ultimately, I'm actually criticizing myself. That's the irony of the whole thing, right? That I could see this, and I could see, like, I didn't ask those certain questions. And what it ends up being is, wow, you know, like, this is the internal dialogue I should be having with myself. Yet I'm critical of other people, or like the people and how they handle this. And ultimately, I'm actually speaking to my own foolishness. So that's actually really, that's enlightening. And very surprising. It's hard to look back and, you know, step back and look at yourself, you know? It's hard to do that because you build a wall around yourself, but then it's so much more critical. I mean, easier to see other people more critically. But then when you realize that you're doing the same exact thing that other people are doing, because after all, we're all human, or we all share the human experience, we could be that way. But this is about finding wisdom. Finding it? No, this is about nurturing wisdom. And wisdom is, what is wisdom? How do you even define wisdom? I think wisdom is the ability to see situations and knowing what's best and being able to see the things that are inevitable versus the things that only give you a slight chance. I think wisdom is taking everything that you know and being able to think critically about what all of that means, so then you could have, you know, a deeper sense of like existing in this world and a better quality of life. I think it's about also deep understanding of things with the knowledge that you collect. So I think that is my ultimate take home from this episode. Being more like 𝘠𝘷. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, because I don't really know 𝘠𝘷, but I feel like he has a lot of wisdom.
Well, we know he's conniving, and we know that he tortured Talia for his own reasons, but we don't really know much about the 𝘸𝘢𝘴𝘆.
But how amazing is it that you can walk into a room and you could command the whole room because of your mysteriousness and the wisdom that he emanates, right? I mean, who else in that room could have actually said, I don't think we're ready for immortality? Who else in that room would have been able to say that?
Nobody.
I don't think that people are capable, including myself, to accept loss of some sort, even though the price to pay for it may be high. Loss is harder. Like, you know, there are social experiments out there, and well, I don't know the name of it. I think it's, I don't know the name of those social experiments, but basically, it's probably based on loss gain theory, but basically, compared to being given $100, if you actually lost the $100 instead, the loss in experience is greater than the gain. And I don't think that people in general want to experience loss. It's a lot tougher than gaining something. But in this situation, right, like the loss is like not the possibility that you won't be able to heal diseases and help other people. But in the grand scheme of things, I think the loss would be a lot bigger. It would be a lot bigger because, again, who would the 𝘦𝘱𝘵 benefit anyway?
𝘐'𝘷𝘦 to me is the ultimate stoic.
He is the ultimate stoic, and I've been working on practicing stoicism.
Because all those people had to motivate them was that thing I hate so much.
Hope.
Right. They don't have logic. They're not thinking critically. They're relying on emotions and blind faith, which is nonsense. Because you and I both know that the 𝘦𝘱𝘵 isn't going to help everyone. It's only going to help the rich. It's only going to help the powerful. So instead of thinking critically and using logic like 𝘐'𝘷𝘦 and just eliminating the program, the situation, she doesn't deserve to live any longer. And whatever she has to give, it's not worth the cost. It's that simple. So you solve both problems. You just eliminate the entire issue.
But people put too much stock in their emotions. A lot of stock in their emotions. And I'm guilty of one of those being one of those people, right? It's a difficult balance for a lot of people, including myself, this emotional balance versus reality.
The collision of hope and reality, which is the reason why everyone is miserable, because they're constantly battling those collisions instead of being logical and realistic about the situation, instead of, and getting disappointed and making bad decisions. Think and make the right decision. Don't guess.
Yeah, I mean,
𝘐'𝘷𝘦 doesn't guess.
no, he doesn't guess. He makes very clear decisions based on very clear understanding of things. Yeah, 𝘐'𝘷𝘦. You know, speaking of 𝘐'𝘷𝘦, the other thing that I really like about 𝘐'𝘷𝘦, actually one of the other favorite line in this episode was when Talia says to him, I don't understand any of this, right? Like, I don't know what it means or something to that effect. And he says, you seek meaning. Then listen to the music and not the song.
Ambassador 𝘐'𝘷𝘦.
There is a question.
Yes. I've been scanning Mr. 𝘏𝑷 all day, and his mind is still just as empty as when we started. And these phrases you keep speaking in, they don't make any sense.
You seek meaning.
Yes.
Then listen to the music, not the song.
That takes practice. This is about process versus content. And often people are only hung up on content. It's about spoken communication that people are focused on. It's very black and white, what's being said, but very rare is it that people pay attention to what's underneath that's spoken. And Talia, I don't think understood that at all. She was tortured this episode, that poor woman, because she didn't understand what was going on, and she was very black and white, I felt. So, yeah, I think being able to see things, being able to listen to the song is hard. It takes practice. But that's also what therapy is about. I don't know if people recognize that, but oftentimes people talk about what they are feeling and the experiences they go through, and it's a therapist's job to see what it is that they're experiencing underneath all that's being told in the story. So the fact that Kosh says this, it's another bump up to his understanding of the world and knowledge of, humanity, right? I know I'm not really still good at this. I end up starting off summarizing episodes instead of just jumping right into the media therapy portion. It's actually really challenging. With media, you want to just sort of summarize things. It just seems more natural.
Does it?
It does. I mean, when you talk to anybody about TV and media, when you ask them how they feel, they always tell you what the episode's about. It's a very strange thing.
It doesn't make any sense.
I understand that.
Then that's not how you feel. That's a summary of the episode.
I understand this. I very much understand this, but I'm not the only one, which is a testament to, again, the process and content almost, right? Mm-hmm. It's so much easier to see and listen to what's told and speak about what's told and summarize what's told than be able to dig underneath and talk about it from that perspective. And that takes practice. So I will continue to try my best, but this is really challenging for me. It's funny because it's easier to do with clients. It's not so much easier to do with myself while connecting it to a piece of media and using that as a source of inspiration to draw out things. Part of that is also wanting to stay behind a wall because it's safer too. It doesn't make it any easier to talk about yourself in that way, especially publicly. So I admit it. That piece is there, even though I'm very, I am straightforward and I say I'm honest and open and an open book. But it's still hard to talk about things.
One thing that I find interesting from people who are watching the show, or some people in particular, who don't understand the concept of media therapy. And I keep saying to them, this project is not about Babylon 5.
It's like me. You say that to me too.
Right. So I'm reiterating this to you because I want to make sure that you understand this too. Media therapy could be any media, right? I've done media therapy with anime and different TV shows. It's not about the show. It's not about the content. It's about what you get from the content. And a lot of people don't understand that even still. They think that this project is about you analyzing Babylon 5. It's about you analyzing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
It has nothing to do with B5.
You know, there's something I forgot to mention.
Okay.
And this would be an example of it, right? So as 𝘸𝘢𝘵 was speaking, she says to Sinclair, "You and your kind take blind comfort in the belief that we are monsters." And the phrase blind comfort was something that resonated with me as well. For so long, I've taken blind comfort in things too, thinking that things are outside of my control. So I don't feel like I have any hand in anything. Or for the longest time, I felt like I don't have a hand in anything, right? So the phrase blind comfort is poignant. It's beautiful. It's sad. And it's so self-diminishing too. I've taken blind comfort in believing that my life is going to play out without me putting a lot of effort into it. That it's going to turn out well, you know, because for a longest time when I was younger, my cards were lined up for me. Of course, I didn't give it, you know, of course I put effort into it, but I felt like I put like little effort into it. But then as I grew older, I still took blind comfort in a lot of things, like let's say how the world revolved, or just circumstances. Like it's just going to work out. But you know, it's funny because I took blind comfort in these things, thinking that things will play out without putting any effort into anything. But then it was everyone else putting effort into those things. So basically, I'm the one. I think the easiest example would be this. So when I was placed in the position of being the dementia unit manager at work, I didn't really realize that I was actually in a position of leadership, right? Or in this position of having a hand in making my beliefs about how the program should run, or my opinions of certain things could have any weight to it. So I took blind comfort in everyone else making decisions for how the unit will run. This is a very lucid example, but nevertheless an example. So I wouldn't really step up to the plate, let's say. And as I started to continue to manage the unit, that was when I realized I couldn't just take blind comfort in knowing that things will run smoothly, that I had to put effort into things. I had to say, and I could actually make things happen. Like whatever input I had, there was an outcome that could be sought, that could result from it. Yeah, blind comfort. It just seems like as if like you put yourself in a place of not thinking that you have any power in anything at all. When in fact anything that you do, anything that I do, can make a change. I think I've taken too much blind comfort in many things. And thinking about that, I don't feel so great about it, knowing that there was so many things I could have done differently. And so many things I could have had an opinion on, or even create an effect. You know, like even a ripple in the water would have been something that I had the power to do, and I didn't think about it. I didn't realize it. But for me, the phrase was something that resonated for me, you know, like this outside of like what she was talking about, and outside of B5, just the phrase blind comfort is my whole entire life. You know, and you know, like I'm such a passive participant in this world. There's so much I could have done. That's the part that bothers me, listening to that phrase. There's so much I could have done. I could have been elsewhere. I could have been at a different place in my life. Maybe I could have been able to deliver more quality media therapy, you know? If I didn't take blind comfort in knowing that I was just good enough and I'm okay with just being good enough, you know? Mm-hmm. That is what I was, you know, I'm thinking in my mind.
But what is the opposite of blind comfort? If you don't want to sit around and live a life of blind comfort, what's the opposite of that? What's the exact opposite of blind, and what's the exact opposite of comfort?
Well, what's the opposite of blind?
Sighted, seeing.
So sighted discomfort?
Right. It means you have to see the world how it is. You have to see yourself how you are. You have to see things with reality and critical thinking. Mm-hmm. And that is nearly impossible for most people. They walk around completely just like, whatever, right? Blind comfort. This is bad. I'm not that bad, right? And they everything is like that. They don't see the world with eyes wide open and clarity and logic because it's too scary. It's too discomforting.
Yeah,
that's not what Kosh does.
No, he could easily say, well, the Vorlons deserve this, and then take it for himself. But in the end, he doesn't even do that either. He could easily take that for himself, the anti-Gapik.
Sure.
I'm sure the Vorlons could actually create it, to be honest. I don't think they need 𝘠𝑢𝑑𝑜r, really. But it's easy to have every single excuse in the book. And still say, well, to have blind comfort. I know I do. I can blame it on a multitude of different things instead of me going out and participating in the world. That's blind comfort. Sitting at home, enjoying the little luxuries of life that are like basic necessities, really. Like food and water and gaming. And not participating in the world. That's blind comfort. And blind comfort is, letting other people like create ripples in the water even if they're not the good ones. And sitting back and thinking, well, someone else will help them out. Someone else will guide them. Someone else will come along their way to help them see the light. While I sit back and say, well, I'm not good enough. Or I'm just good enough and this is okay with me. Even though I feel like in many other ways there's a lot of things that I can contribute positively to, but I don't because it's too effortful. And then I wallow in that and think, what am I doing? For the number of times I've been reinforced and been told that I was a better therapist than the people that they've come across, and some of the stories I've heard about other therapists out there, why do I feel like I don't really have like the qualifications to? Or why do I feel like, well, someone else will come along to help them who's better than me? Or just simply someone else will, can show them the way. But I don't think that but then I never put myself in the position of like thinking, that could be me. I haven't done that. Okay, well, I think that's all for my confessions for today. Thank you, Father Elaine.
That's media therapy for you. It's the whole point. It's not about the show. It's
right.
About how the show makes you feel, how the characters make you feel. But it's not an analysis of the characters or the writing or the plot. So summarizing it is unnecessary. Even talking about B5 is unnecessary because
I have to keep putting that in my mind, and it's just so hard to do because it's almost like you have to like set a foundation for what you're going to talk about.
Well, you
but then
put it in context.
Right. Yeah. But then like I get lost in that, and I'm a terrible storyteller too, on top of it, and it's like, what am I doing? You know? Okay, look, I survived this episode. Okay, like that's all I can say.
Everything the show brings up for you that comes out, that's the therapy. Whatever the character said, the blind comfort line that makes you suddenly.
Yeah.
Right? It's not about her. It's not about Sarah Douglas as much as we love Sarah Douglas. And as much as we love that
She has beautiful teeth.
Sarah Douglas is an extraordinary actress, even under all that makeup. It's about what she said and how it resonated with you. Mm-hmm. That's it. So yes, the context helps, but everyone's seen B5. Anyone who's watching this has either already seen the show and loves it, and they're probably not the best audience for it because they're looking for someone to talk about the show, but this isn't about the show.
Right.
But some people don't know the show at all, and they're interested in you. So the context isn't really going to matter to them because they've never seen it. And you can't explain all of it to them. It only matters what you feel, what you're gaining, and what you're learning from watching the show. That's it.
You know, like, Kosh really resonated with me. That last scene really resonated with me with him. Like, how amazing is it to, like, walk into a room and everyone just feels his presence, and it's just so intense and powerful, but it's not in a way that feels bad either. It's just, there's a sort of comfort to that too. Imagine if I could be that person who shows up somewhere while everyone's having like anxiety and stress and panic attacks all over the place, and I walk in and they immediately just feel this sense of calm. Because I can give it to them with just my mere presence and help them make a single decision that they themselves couldn't do by just helping them see the light. How amazing is that?
You have that ability already.
To a degree. I'm looking forward to the next episode. I'm looking forward to getting better at doing media therapy. And now that our setup is okay, it seems like this will continue to be an easier process. We were going to film last week, but I ended up with my pipes bursting, so that didn't happen. But anyway, thank you guys for watching and joining me at this hour of longing.
The talks are over for the day. We shall commence again tomorrow at the hour of longing.
And I will see you guys in the next episode. Bye! And prior to 𝘐'𝘷𝘦, who represents
The League of Non-Aligned Worlds.
Yes, the League of Non-Aligned Worlds.
I thought you took notes.
I didn't take those kinds of notes.
Oh.
Look, the fact that I remembered 𝘐'𝘷𝘦's name is a miracle, okay? Because you were referring to her as Fish Girl before, so look. Give me credit. We're helping each other out here. Alright, so... Yeah, no. What is it called? An anti-aging concoction. Wait, what is it?
It seems like a serum. Or
Serum. I kept thinking ointment, injection. And
anti-agapic ointment.
Yeah, I don't think it's...
Rub this on you.
I don't... If you rub it on your wrinkles, would that help?
I don't know.
Okay. So anyway, yeah. Since they're rebuilding their whole colony.
Colony?
Race?
Planet.
Sorry.
It's a planet.
Colony.
It's not just a town somewhere.
Oh, okay. I gotta go back to playing some more Civ 5 or Civ 6. That's how I got all my geography lessons, which is probably why it's not been very helpful.